Hello everyone, this is Meteorologist Joel Curtis with your Alaska Weather TV show. Wow, what a summer this is turning out to be, folks. Yesterday, Dead Horse set a maximum temperature record of 78. The previous record was 76, set in 2018. We had lightning this morning, a couple of strokes just south of Utiagavik. Also at the north end of White Pass and Chillicoot Pass. And also we had some lightning in the upper Tanana early, and a little bit later we had a stroke between Eagle and Central. Shashaldan volcano again is putting off steam. And as a matter of fact, it's showing a little bit of the SO2 as well that's coming out, and a couple of puffs of ash. It's also been really, really hot in the central interior, so we're starting out with a red flag warning for the Yukon Flats, Deltana, and the central interior, and a fire weather watch for the Copper River Basin. We're looking at some different fuels, so let's first start though with the thunderstorms, and that always has a little bit of potential of a wildland fire ignition. So we have scattered thunderstorms, again, extending from the Yukon Flats, a lot of the central interior, and almost down to Palmer. For the Talkeetnas just east there, and also over in the upper Tanana Valley. And then note that very, very large area of isolated thunderstorms as well for just about the entire mainland, with the exception of the southwest and the very west coast. So a lot of potential there for today. Tomorrow, a very, very large area, isolated thunderstorms, again, almost in the same area, all the way up to the north slope, and then pretty far out west, and then almost down to the lower part of South Central, and well over to the Canadian border. And then for Tuesday, that's a pretty good area, again, all the way up to the north slope, more like the central interior in the center. And then again, the upper Tanana Valley, Alaska Range, and then down to Talkeetna or so, and also including McCarthy. So there's our two warnings. The red flag warning, it's for the, again, for the Yukon Flats, also a little bit for the central interior, including the middle Yukon area, and then also right along the Alaska Range, including Delta Junction. And then we had a fire weather watch again. Now this is due because we have some dry fuels and we have this potential for ignition. So here is the grass adjective, which is our very, very fine fuel moisture. And that is showing extreme in the Yukon Flats area, and then some pretty large swaths just about anywhere where you got some good sunshine today. Those grasses really, really dried out. And then looking at our spruce adjective, again, the Yukon Flats, any of our black spruce that's up in there, and then also down toward the Alaska Range into the Copper River Basin, and a little bit toward the southwest or so for some dry spruce. But notice that South Central is still pretty wet on the spruce adjective there. So let's take a quick look at our satellite image. I'm going to back out just a little bit here just to show you the low that's out in the Bering Sea, and then also down just south of Haida Gwaii, and then a lot of clear areas for the mainland portion with a few cumulus buildups. Still hasn't quite got going today, but we'll see what this afternoon brings with these maximum temperatures. So take a look at our surface map. Think of that area in the west here. This is all one system. We've got one in the far western Bering, 998 millibars, and then in the central Bering, not too far from Pribilof Center, 998, and then a third low that's down off the Shumigan Islands, and that's about 1,000 6 or so, right down there, and not too far from Unimak Island where the Shishaldin volcano is. And then what we have in the eastern portion here is a low in the Yukon Territory, about 1,005. A little bit of ridging down in the Gulf of 1018, and then right up to a high center over southeast 1018, but those are really weak and not a lot of circulation around them. But note that trough extending westward out of that Yukon Territory low. That little bit of a trough is what we call a thermal low. And with these hot temperatures that we've had, the air is rising so much that it causes low pressure. And so then for tonight, again, we're looking for thunderstorms, a lot in the central interior there, on over into Canada. We have still some high pressure over the Gulf region. That low has 1,004. It's drifted south of Haida Gwaii, a little bit of precip out in the Gulf, and then relatively clear and dry areas for northern and western Alaska. And then looking again at that system that's out in the Bering Sea, what we've got is those three lows, and they're weakening a little bit, especially that one down there by Sandpoint, about 1,007 or so, weakening out, causing a little precipitation out in front of it. And then looking at Monday's weather, that same system, now the central low is deepened again to 992. A little cold air got in the backside of that. But notice that low that's good now in the Gulf, south of Kodiak Island, about 1,011. So that thing is really weakened out. But look at our central interior. That heat trough is formed again, attached to 1,004 millibar low. When we're indicating thunderstorms again against that large swath of the central interior, and then that low is still drifting off very, very slowly to the southeast, south of Haida Gwaii. And then for Tuesday's weather, again, that low pressure in the Yukon Territory, still drifting east a little bit, but note the thermal trough is still going across the central interior. And again, with all that warming and then possibly some clear areas, we've got to be thinking at least isolated thunderstorms. Pretty good evidence in the models that was going to happen. And then look at our system out in the Bering Sea. Now that thing is 998 millibars. That's still a pretty weak low, but it's reforming up, and it's going to become all one system again. And a little bit of cold air, like I said, getting into the backside of that low that's down by the western Aleutians. A little bit of troughingness out ahead of it, and a bit of ridging down there. That high that I've indicated there on Tuesday is actually further to the south, but it's pretty strong, up to 1031 millibars. So now let's look at our temperatures. First of all, starting with our look at the mainland, we've got, if you're near the Arctic Ocean or near the ice, you're going to be down in the 40s. But look at those 50s a little bit in the northwest along the Chukchi Sea coast. A low temperature of 62 to the 64 as you get down in the Yukon Flats, and then a lot of 50s around the state, dropping off into the 40s as you get in that cold water in the Bering Sea or so. And then for our temperatures, low temperatures in southeast, temperatures across maybe about in the around 50 or so, maybe a little bit higher or so with various cloud cover that we're going to get. And then for our high temperatures Monday afternoon, look out. We've got some 70s up in the Panhandle and then drifting down into the 60s or so. Sea breeze at Yakutat was 61. But then take a look at what's going up in the central interior. You start to see a lot of 80s and then going up to 90s in the Yukon Flats. So hot. It's still staying really, really warm. And look at the Brooks Range and look at the Chukchi Sea coast, all the way up into the 60s, 70s in the Brooks Range or so. And then it takes all the way up to the Arctic ice before you start to see a drop off in the temperature. Of course, going out in the west, you can see, around 60 or so, 52 for the Pribilofs. And then for our low temperatures Tuesday morning, all across the Alaska Peninsula and out in the Bering Sea in the 40s or so. Look to the north there, 36 for Utaagavik, but for the rest of it, around 50 or so. Once you start getting into the central interior, again, Yukon Flats, notice those overnight lows are staying in the 60s. In the meantime, as you get down to south central Alaska, temperatures in the 50s or so. And then for the Panhandle, we've got, might touch a little bit in the 40s there, but generally around 50, maybe up to 54 for Sitka. And then for our high temperatures Tuesday afternoon, again, hot temperatures. And what we've got there is 91 for the Yukon Flats, a lot of 80s and 70 readings that you see. 82 looks like that was about Glen Allen or so. And then as you get further down into south central, temperatures bleeding off into the 70s, 67 in looks like as we get out into the lower Yukon River area. And then for the Bering Sea, temperatures generally in the 50s. And then for the Panhandle, pretty good into the 60s there for the Panhandle. So now let's look at a quick look at the far out predictions that we've got here. For July 29th through August 2nd, our 6 to 10 day forecast showing again a pretty darn good chance of much above normal temperatures for the Alcan border, extending a little bit into the interior. Again, a pretty good chance all across the eastern half of the state. Starts to drop off a little bit, and then finally as you get out to the west coast, a bit of a chance that it's going to be below normal. And then for our precipitation, again, that's the same area, and we think that this is picking up a little bit on the convection that's been occurring there day after day. Also, looking at the north slope, a little bit, pretty good chance of above normal. Normal through the central portion of the state, and then as you get down into the southwest, below normal precipitation. Going out to the 2-week mark, above normal precipitation for most, above normal temperatures for most of the state. Pretty warm signal that the Climate Prediction Center is getting. Warm all the way up to the, again, a pretty good chance of warm all the way up to the north slope. And then even out west some where it starts to bleed off into their normal temperatures. And look at the Panhandle again, above normal temperatures predicted in that long-term forecast. Pretty good probability that they're going to be above too. And then finally for our 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, we already saw that. So folks, there's a lot of weather going on there, and it's some really interesting stuff, but please stay safe out there and pay attention to your local forecast. Get online or dial in and find out what the local forecast office is doing. Thanks for tuning in.